What is up, ladies and gentlemen? First video of me reacting to some TikToks. Let's get into it though.
Are we really living in the year 1728? Yesterday, I shared the theory of the missing 300 years from the Dark Ages, leading many to believe that the Dark Ages never actually happened, and that it was just a simple calendar change. Okay, let's look at what took place just before the Dark Ages happened. In the year 476, the Western Roman Empire collapsed. It was a system that daily life lived off of, and it was very structured. They had scribes, historians, and libraries to keep things documented. Roman officials wrote down everything: laws, taxes, military movements, even trade records. They even had a postal system to spread news around Europe. It was operating similar to how society operates today. There was law and there was order. But when it collapsed, absolute chaos ensued. The people started looking around going, hold on. Why are we following these laws if there's no government to enforce them? This type of thinking caused Europe to go into consistent war with each other. The former Roman lands were then split up into these small mini kingdoms everywhere, ruled by warlords. Vikings and Muslim armies started raiding towns and burning down cities. It was the definition of lawless. Vikings would raid monasteries. This is where records were kept. They would start burning books and burning down libraries. So if there were any records at the time, they were likely destroyed in one of these many wars that took place. Because of this way of living, the Dark Ages became a time of survival and not progress. People didn't have the time to write things down. They were too busy trying not to die. Education stopped, so people gradually started to forget the Roman knowledge. In fact, the concrete that the Romans invented was lost for almost 1,000 years because nobody remembered how to make it.
Imagine how much stuff that we're just missing. We're just missing like so much of our history. It's crazy to think about. Let's move on.
All of the trade roads became destroyed over time because nobody knew how to fix them, which meant people never left their small villages. They never did the long treks to share information across Europe, so any records that were there were extremely localized and not even written down. Around the same time of the collapse, the Justinian plague took place, wiping out almost 50% of Europe. And a lot of the people that got wiped out were educated people, the ones that knew how to read and write and actually take things down. Fewer educated people meant less books and less records. The Catholic Church then became very dominant in Europe at this time, and instead of writing down history, they decided to copy religious text, completely ignoring science and history and focusing on religious teachings. So, was 300 years in Europe completely wiped out just by a simple calendar change? No, it was literally just Europe going through a massive reset due to the fall of structure. There is plenty of evidence that the rest of the world actually was thriving at this time. China was in the midst of the Tang Dynasty, an era that is one of the most documented in Chinese history. Astronomical records were kept, and they all aligned. The Islamic Golden Age was absolutely thriving during this time. The Mayans kept stone carvings of historical events, and they weren't even connected to Europe at all. So all in all, the 300 years definitely happened. It was Europe that was struggling, not the rest of the world. If you guys enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and follow for more fun videos like this. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.
What's your thoughts?
These shocking facts about the Dark Ages will make you grateful you're living in the 21st century. Last one will truly amaze you. The plague of Justinian, which swept through Europe and Near East, wiped out up to 50 million people between 541 to 549 AD. That's nearly half the world's population at the time. This was the first bubonic plague pandemic. Fast forward to 800 AD. You're standing in Rome, witnessing Charlemagne being crowned Holy Roman Emperor. But here's the kicker. This Roman Empire is neither holy nor Roman, nor really an empire. It's a patchwork of feudal states that will shape European politics for centuries. It's now 909 AD, and you're in a small village watching a peculiar ritual. People are digging up corpses and, wait for it, putting them on trial. Welcome to the Cadaver Synod, where the rotting corpse of Pope Formosus was actually tried, convicted, and punished for perjury. Think modern politics is bad? In the Dark Ages, royal succession was a deadly game. Take the year 1002, when English King Ethelred the Unready ordered the massacre of all Danes in England on St. Brice's Day. Talk about extreme immigration control. Feeling thirsty? In many parts of Dark Age Europe, water was so polluted that people drank weak beer instead, even children. It was safer than water and provided some nutrition. Cheers to that. The Dark Ages also saw the rise of some truly bizarre saints. Ever heard of Saint Gwynfort? He was a 13th century French saint who was a dog. Yes, people prayed to a canine for the protection of children. children. Finally, let's talk about the medieval warm period. From about 950 to 1250 AD, Europe experienced unusually warm temperatures. Great for crops, right? Sure, until it led to the spread of diseases and contributed to the devastating famines of the 14th century. So in the Dark Ages, corpses stood trial, dogs became saints, and your beer was safer than your water. Maybe they should have called it the Weird Ages instead.
You guys ever hear about that? How beer saved America because of that reason right there? Yeah. What do you guys know about that? I don't know. You seen it here first or second?
What was the worst year in human history? Well, look no further than the year 536 AD. Here are 5 reasons why it was the worst year to be alive. First, a massive volcanic eruption in Iceland caused a thick ash cloud to spread throughout Europe and Asia, leading to a volcanic winter. This resulted in a global temperature drop, leading to crop failures and famine. Second, the bubonic plague broke out in the Byzantine Empire, killing millions of people in Europe and Asia. This was just the beginning of the plague that would continue to ravage humanity for centuries to come. Third, massive floods and droughts occurred in China, leading to widespread starvation and mass migrations. Fourth, political instability and warfare ravaged Europe and the Middle East, with the Gothic War between the Byzantine Empire and the Ostrogothic Kingdom leading to the destruction of many cities. Finally, the year 536 AD marked the beginning of the Dark Ages, a period of intellectual and cultural decline that lasted for centuries. To unlock the secrets of humanity, visit our profile for a free ebook bundle.
Was the Dark Ages really a time of stagnation or a hidden chapter of progress? Let's redefine this controversial era. Contrary to its name, the Dark Ages, 500 to 1500 CE, were not devoid of light. The term originated from a lack of written records after Rome's fall, not a collapse of civilization. Societies adapted, innovated, and laid foundations for the future. Farmers revolutionized agriculture with iron plows, boosting food production. Monasteries preserved philosophy, science, and literature, safeguarding ancient wisdom. Charlemagne's reign ignited a revival of learning, blending classical and Christian thought. Vikings expanded trade routes across continents, connecting Europe to the wider world. Yes, challenges existed, political strife, pandemics, and conflict, yet even crises spurred change. The Crusades, while destructive, opened channels for cultural exchange, introducing Europe to advanced mathematics, medicine, and spices from the East. Calling this era dark overlooks its role as a bridge between antiquity and modernity. Universities emerged, Gothic architecture soared, and technological strides like windmills and mechanical clocks paved the way for the Renaissance. History is rarely black and white. Ready to rethink the past? Tap the like button. Follow for more untold stories, and let's uncover the truth, one era at a time.
This photo was from 1923, and these women were called the Radium Girls. Now, in the 1920s, these women worked at a factory for a company called the U.S. Radium Corporation. Their job was to mix radium-infused paint and then paint the dials of watch faces and airplane dials. Now, a lot of these watches actually went to the military, because the thing about radium paint is that it glows. So this allowed the soldiers to be able to check what time it was in darker conditions. Think of it as glow-in-the-dark paint, but using radium to get that glow. Not good. Well, in 1923, one of these women falls sick, and slowly all of her teeth start to fall out one by one until eventually she goes to the dentist, and as he
Anybody have one of those dreams where your teeth fall out? Let me know about them in the comments below.
He's looking around her mouth, her jaw breaks off into his hands. Now I get it, this sounds like a playground myth, but this was the start of a side effect called radium jaw. The person's jaw would detach from the skull and then fall off. Now of course this shocks the other workers, but the company goes, no, it's fine, just go back to work, everything's okay. While these women would paint these dials, they were instructed to lip, dip, paint. The brushes that they used were made from camel fur, and after a few strokes, the brush would naturally start to fan out. So they were instructed to take the brush, put it in their mouth, and sharpen the tip with their tongue. Keep in mind, at the time, the company was telling these women, this was safe, it's all good, there's nothing to worry about. But the issue with radium is that its chemistry closely resembles calcium. So the body would then mistake the radium for calcium and start to pump it into all of the bone tissue throughout the body. Calcium strengthens bones, whereas radium completely destroys it. And since these women were sharpening their brushes with their mouths, a lot of that radium got absorbed in their teeth and jaws. Not good. Now, unfortunately, the first woman that fell ill did eventually pass away. And the very next year, 50 women from that factory fell sick, 12 of them passing away. At this point, the women start getting very concerned. But again, the company comes in and says, no, don't worry, it's all completely safe, you'll be fine. All of the coworkers that got sick, not related to this at all. Meanwhile, this is crazy. Nobody
Is that like everyone's boss? Or do you know a boss like that?
from the corporation actually handled the radium paint, and if they did, they would use tongs, masks, and lead screens. Well, the next year, the chief chemist ends up passing away, as well as several other female workers. And at this point, the dentists are the first to speak up. They start saying, you know, a lot of your employees are coming in with awful dental health. Their teeth are falling out, we have to do operations, they've got ulcers, and the worst part, after every operation we do, none of the wounds heal, which then causes further infection, so something's going on here. So at this point, some medical investigations start up, and they start running these women through x-ray machines. But keep in mind, x-ray machines back then only filled these women up with more radiation, worsening their symptoms. It's oh my god, like in hindsight, it's so awful. But amongst some of the medical investigations, one of them was paid off by the company, and the goal here was to try and find something else they could pin all these side effects on, something other than their paint. So the company starts urging all medical staff to attribute the issues to syphilis. Now at the time, syphilis was a massive STI going around, and they figured with this being a group of women, they could push this smear campaign, basically putting all the blame on them and saying, look, all these health issues, it's them with syphilis, it's not our paint. It was so brutal. Basically just gaslighting the hell out of these women. Well, a couple years go by and nothing ends up getting done, and all the company does is swaps out the brushes for glass pens. Now when the women start using these glass pens with the idea that they're no longer going to start putting the brushes in their mouths and the pen will work fine. The issue is, as the women started to use these glass pens, they were so much slower, and these women were paid by the dial that they painted. So a lot of them decided to opt back into the brush. And I know what you're thinking. Well, at that point, it's their problem. No, because at this point, nobody knows what's causing these health issues. They don't know it's the paint. They don't know it's what's right in front of them because they're being told it's safe. Now, at this point, the Radium girls decide to sue. They search all around and they eventually find a lawyer that will take their case. But the entire process was very slow moving. So slow, in fact, that the women continued to get sick. So much so that some of them had to drop out because they couldn't even raise their arm to take the oath in court. Now, after years and years, eventually the Radium girls ended up winning in court. But of course, the company tried to get it overturned, and they would appeal and appeal and appeal. The Radium girls ended up winning 8 times in court before the corporation was forced to pay out. Each Radium girl ended up getting $177,000, that's been converted for today's rates, and then $10,600 annually for the rest of their lives. Plus, all medical and legal bills were paid by the company. Brutal, brutal, brutal. And that is the story of the Radium girls. If you guys enjoyed this, please be sure to like and follow for more fun videos like this. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. See you guys later.
Good thing they got paid and for life. That's awesome.
What do y'all think is going on here? This one happened in the middle of nowhere back in 2022 in Finland.
You know, things get really weird when you start thinking about mud floods, you know, liquefying of the terrain. What was happening between like the 1860s and the 1920s? You got all these fires, you got all these floods, all these hurricanes, all these storms, and you got the Dust Bowl. What was the experiment? I mean, there were power lines all over the place. And it goes to show you that nobody was thinking that they're putting power lines all over the place. These advanced buildings that are just absolutely stunning, and then you got power lines all over the place. Doesn't make any sense. You wouldn't build a building that is harnessing water energy and all about the water and the beauty of the earth, and then put power lines all over the place over here. Well, let's say an electrical storm occurred on the earth, some massive electrical storm. That could actually cause everything to turn into liquid too. If you add enough heat, you can turn things into liquid. I could get the reflection off of this from the sun onto the earth. I could then cause things to turn to liquid. And it's interesting too, because they don't allow you to experiment with high static fields in 2024 if you're around power lines, because the power lines will completely disintegrate. So then you start to sit there and think, okay, well, maybe high static fields turned everything to mush. And then we're on layers and layers and layers and layers and layers of mush.
You are looking at some of the last remaining footage of the old world, digitally enhanced and recolorized for your eyes to behold and bear witness to. Many of the structures and even a lot more of the people probably didn't survive the great wars to come. We're the last generation that will be able to look at footage or images and know that any of them are genuine. You are all some of the last remaining witnesses to a world that some may soon believe never really existed. We didn't necessarily have to believe the words, but at least we knew the images were true.
Now you don't know.
But what we are told is that the Dark Ages, the Middle Ages, the medieval period starts with the fall of Rome in 476 and doesn't end until sometime around 1492, that it lasts 1,000 years. There's 1,000 years without knowledge. But I just showed you that there was actually extraordinary developments that were taking place, including calculus 600 years before Newton. Ibn al-Haytham stated Newton's first law of motion 600 years before Newton. He actually described Kepler's first law of planetary motion 500 years before Kepler.
True? False? What do you know?
John Rowalski, Director of the U.S. Department of All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, wants to hear from you. They have an open now policy for anybody that has footage or any anomaly in the sky. They want those recordings. The reason why, to investigate further on how these objects or these phenomena fly through the sky.
Did you know that while Europe was stumbling through the Dark Ages, the Maya were performing brain surgery? Mind-blowing, right? Picture this. It's 900 AD. In Europe, they're using leeches for medicine. Meanwhile, the Maya are drilling into skulls with precision. It's called trepanation. They used sharp obsidian tools and antiseptic plants, and get this, they had a high survival rate. Imagine living back then, trusting your life to ancient surgeons who knew more about the brain than medieval Europe ever did. They used natural anesthetics like tobacco and hallucinogenic plants to ease the pain. But wait, there's more. The Maya had advanced dental practices too. They drilled teeth to insert precious stones and even perform fillings. And their knowledge of medicinal plants? Next level. They used treatments we're only rediscovering today. So, what do you think? Were the Maya more advanced than medieval Europe in medicine? Comment your thoughts. And if you're blown away by this, hit follow for more mind-bending history facts.
You heard it. First ones with grills.
I'll never smile again until I smile at you.
These guys weren't even looking for UFOs. On March 10th in Sao Paulo, Brazil, this couple, they were only set up just to look at the planet Mars. Whenever through their telescope, they saw this.
Look you guys think that is? It's different, that's for sure. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that was my first ever reaction video. You know what? It might not be the best, it might not be the worst, but it's my first. Hope you guys have a wonderful week, wonderful day, wonderful moment.